Purpose Chasers, I'm very excited to have Miss Kris Keidel on. I met Kris inside of Steph Stanton's Held Sacred community. She was one of Steph's clients. Kris, thank you so much for coming on the Purpose Chasers. I'm really honored to have you here.
You are so very welcome, and thank you for having me.
To give you a lead in here, can you share with me what got you on the path that attracted you to Steph in the first place?
Right.
I think that'll get this going.
So, um, my background is in education. I have my bachelor's in education, my master's in education, my sixth year in educational leadership. I was a teacher for 10 years, a supervisor for 20 years, and always went to psychic fairs, always thought it was cool, like life coaching, and always believed in all that stuff. Kind of felt that I had a little bit of something. Um, I was just connected to that side. But I was a principal, so it's kind of like being a principal is really like black and white and structured. And what happened was I was in a job that I transferred over to that really didn't serve me. It was being a principal, it was opening a school, really didn't serve me. I was very stressed. The drive was an hour back and an hour forth. And my daughter was 10, 11, 12 around there, and I was miserable. When I tell you miserable, like now I know God, the universe was saying to me, this is not where you're supposed to be. But I had all my degrees. I was driving my fancy car. I bought a new house. Like I was making the money. So how could I let all this go? And because of the stress, I thought because of the stress, my eyes were just freaking out. I always knew that I had problems with my eyes, but never really this bad. I went to the eye doctor, the ophthalmologist, and she said that you're legally blind. You can't drive anymore. You can't, my vision was to be legal in Connecticut, your vision has to be 20/80 or better. So 20/20 is what we always hear. And then 20/30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, all that you can drive. I was 2,200. Some people said 2,800. Some people said 2,600. I went to a lot of people. But whatever the case is, I was way over 20/80. So I I had a choice at that point with my preteen daughter, with my brand new house, to either have a nervous breakdown, which would have been easier, or to move forward. And I just said, okay, I'm going to move forward. And everybody in my life was so nervous that I was going to actually quit teaching or being a principal, because it's what I did for 30 years. And I just said, no, there's too many obstacles. I would had to have gotten somebody to drive me to work, somebody to be with me at work. It wasn't the flow anymore. And it's certainly not where I wanted to be in that specific school district. So I just quit. I was able to go out on disability, which I was so against for so long. I don't know why. I just had such a bad taste in my mouth for people. I think that some people take advantage of it. So then I was like, oh my God, here's me going out on disability. So about a month into it, I started getting really into Reiki, and Reiki is working, it's energy healing, and it's working with the seven chakras. So I took a course on that. Then I found a coach, not Stephanie, I found a coach, and I went on a retreat with this one coach. And somebody in the retreat, now it's only like maybe 2 months in now, going out on disability, making 50% of my income, having to give up my fancy car, which was great because my car payment was $500 and my insurance was $300 because I kept on hitting things. So, so that was like an $800 bill that got taken away from me, which was wonderful. I didn't panic about what I was going to do for money. And I found enough money to get a coach and to go on this retreat. And somebody said to me on the retreat, what you're losing in your vision, you're gaining in your insight. Mm. And I was like, screw you. My life is falling apart. Because when you're not ready to hear it, it could be God talking to you. If you're not ready to hear it, you're not ready to hear it. So I was just like, whatever. They don't understand me, whatever. And the retreat was 3 days long. By the end of the third day, I was sitting there crying like I didn't want to leave. Once your heart is open, it's open. And so I finished all my Reiki certifications, and I started getting clients. And so people were like, first year principal, and now you're a Reiki healer and an intuitive. Kris is having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
But I came out of the closet. I came out of the closet is what I always say. Like it's just where I started. And consciously positive came from I didn't have to work at not worrying for some reason. This is the most stressful time in my life, but I was also so much more at ease than when I was a principal. I used to get in the car and vomit before I went to work. That's how much I hate. And I used to love working. I loved the kids. It's the bureaucracy that I can't stand. So I was like physically getting sick. And that's why I thought my eyes were just from stress, you know? So it all came to me because I didn't freak out. I'm like, okay, one day at a time. I have all these bills. What are they going to do? You know what I mean? I have to be honest. I called them to take back my car. I called my mortgage company, said, here's what's going on. I'm making 50% of my income. I didn't have any health insurance because when you go out on disability, you don't have health insurance for 2 years, which was hugely scary, you know? And I just said, okay, it is what it is. I don't, other than God and the angels and the universe working for me, I don't know how else to explain it.
Kris, I'm curious, this came up for me. How long, because I'm a stubborn human and I'm going through stuff right now, which we'll save for another podcast, right? Like
Uh-huh.
everybody's going through stuff.
Right.
How long did you pretend that nothing was wrong? How long did you try to push through and see past and pretend like your vision wasn't dissipating?
It's so I'm 57 now. I say that proudly. This happened when I was 48, this 47, 48. But when I was 21, my mother and I went to the eye doctors. I went with my mother, and it was right after I graduated college. I was 21, and the intern doctor said, you have macular degeneration. You'll be blind within 6 months. So I was almost suicidal at 21. Um, that night, after telling everybody, like, oh my God, end of the world, 21 and you're not going to be able to see is huge, right? So the head doctor called me back and said, no, he's just learning the practice. He misconstrued what your results are. There is something going on with your macula. I'm like, well, thank God I didn't kill myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so then, so a series of shit happened. So that happened in May. My mother died unexpectedly in June. My grandmother died in August, and I still couldn't find a teaching job. And there was always something a little off with my eyes, but I never, I never let it stop me. So I finally, a year after my mom died, I did get a teaching job when I was 25, 22, 23, 23. I might be messed up today's. So, yeah, it was always kind of a joke, like, oh, Dissy blonde, can't see, trips over things. So I think really since I was in my 20s, I've been manipulating it. Like people who see me, unless I tell them, don't really know I have a visual problem. It's my macula, so it's the center. I can see all around me. Like, so in other words, I can't see your nose, but I can see you wearing a hat. I can't see what the hat says, but I see that you're wearing a hat, and I see that you have two pictures. Can't see what the pictures are, but I see that you have two pictures. So I'm not completely blind. It's just reading is virtually impossible for me. At that point, when I was getting a little older, street signs were impossible. So thank God the GPS came along, because in the beginning there was no GPS, believe it or not, back in the 80s and 90s. So I've been kind of faking it till I make it, and so I was a teacher for 10 years, and then an administrator and a supervisor, and everyone just knew I had poor vision, and we just dealt with it. We never really made a big thing of it.
So yeah, I mean, from this place of you can either I mean, you finally get to a place where you can't do the things that you're doing anymore. So you're physically stopped, right? Like
Right.
God has said, "All right, knucklehead,
Right.
crack," right?
Yeah.
Like he does to me. You're clearly not getting the what 10,
The gist.
15 years of signs, Kris. You
Exactly.
keep hitting cars and tripping over curbs, but
Yep.
you know, um when you get to a place of all right, like I surrender, as
Hmm.
you shared before, like can you share what that surrender, like what this climb to get to where you are now to be a leader that truly touched me and inspired me when I was collecting a testimonial for Steph.
Right. um, I it was almost like a climb. Yeah, it was like a climb out because I had gotten into this new position, and I was there for 4 years and didn't like it. Knew it wasn't the best for me. Knew I wasn't doing as the best that I could. So when the doctor said to me, the ophthalmologist said to me, "You're not going to be able to drive anymore. You shouldn't even drive home. It's not legal for you to drive." I almost I took a deep breath. I started crying, and she said, "Listen, 26 years or whatever you've been of service, you've done that. You could have went out on disability before you even started. You plugged along for 26 years. It's time for you to stop now." Like she was very intuitive. Like she was very intuitive to me and very heartwarming, like a sister. Like enough is enough now. You've been faking it for this long. And she just knew I was faking it for this long. I didn't go to the eye doctors for years because I just didn't want to hear it. Um, and I felt relief. I felt relief. Like, okay, I don't have to be an imposter anymore. I can get rid of this job without getting fired or whatever. You know what I mean? Because it was just, like I said, not a good match. Um, and I really felt gratitude. I mean, not gratitude that my eyes were horrible, but gratitude for letting me see that this is not where I'm supposed to be. I don't, it was a struggle for a little while, like months, maybe not years. I mean, it was struggle for years to face it, but then once I faced it, it's like everything else opened up. Reiki came to me, that coach came to me, Stephanie came to me. Like I didn't have to search, I didn't have to climb. I just got out of that negative space and started hearing, and it could have been the same exact stuff I was hearing for 30 years, but started hearing things, like really listening, like, what you're losing in your vision, you're gaining in your insight. And I wasn't sure what that all meant until I did the Reiki, until I started having things happen to me um, that I was paying attention to. So it's not like I just got hit over the head and now I'm this intuitive. Everyone's an intuitive. You just have to pay attention to it. Those gut feelings you have, those headaches you have, the backaches you have, they're all messages from the universe. And it's funny. Somebody will call and say, "Oh, I sprained my right ankle." Da, 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 da. Well, what? That's you stopping yourself from moving forward. What are you afraid of? Why don't you want to move forward? Like everything is, there's a reason behind it. So, so I don't even know if I answered your question,
Oh, you
but
did.
yeah, that's what it just came over me. It wasn't like this big hallelujah. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, okay, now I hated this job. Now I'm rid of this job. Like I'm with a really good reason, right? It wasn't just that I wasn't getting along with the people, you know what I mean? And oh, it was just so freeing. And I was dating somebody who said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure?" Was really apprehensive because he knew the money I was making. He knew I just bought a house. Really apprehensive. "Are you sure you want to give up your car?" And I have to say, driving was probably the hardest thing, especially with a kid in middle school who has softball practice and cheerleading, blah, 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 right? Like I had to get them everywhere. So how was I going to do this? And I, I didn't freak. I didn't freak. I just said, okay, I'll take one day at a time. We'll figure it out. But giving up my car was probably one of the hardest things because it was confirming, but it was also limiting me. Like, oh my God, now I can't drive. Well, how am I going to go to the store? How am I going to do this? And things just happen. They just happen. And it hasn't always been easy. I mean, there's time that a Uber will drop me off at Stop and Shop and I'll get another Uber and I have to wait like an hour and a half because where I live is not like local. Do you know what I mean? It's not always the easiest, but it's forced me to be patient.
Can you walk me through the progression of building consciously positive into the work that you're doing today?
Sure. So it's interesting. In my former job, there was a way of disciplining children called conscious discipline, and I just fell in love with it. Like I wanted to sell the product because it's disciplining with it's just this great philosophy, right? So even when I left, I would use this conscious discipline with my daughter, with my little nephews and nieces. I would use this kind of reframing of how to what strategies to use to make it positive. You can't always be negative, like don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. You say, I would prefer if you did this, or this is what you're supposed. It's just switching the script, right? So when I was using my first coach, she said, well, come up with a name. And I don't, I just came up with consciously positive. Like I have to stay positive. I'm just going to stay positive. So consciously positive. Does that mean I don't swear sometimes and I don't get mad and I don't get angry and I don't throw something? No, hell no, I'm human. But when given a choice, I like to stop and think and just, this is happening for me, not to me. And what am I supposed to learn from this? And it took me 50 years to figure that out. It didn't just happen. So then when I finally was finished with that first coach, and I wanted to go in another direction, somebody referred me to Stephanie. I'm like, okay, I'll try her. And she came over my house and we just blended. We fit real. And she says I was one of her first coaching clients, or one of her. Yeah, I think I was like either one of her first or one of her first for the package or whatever like that. So I'm like the OG. And she was a lot younger than me, but I loved her energy. And again, money was pretty tight, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to say I can't afford this. I have to move some things around. So I moved some things around. I didn't, you know, buy my $400 pocketbook that I wanted. Do you know what I mean? Like you prioritize when you have to, and I hate when people hate. I discourage people to say, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. Yes, you can, but you choose to eat instead. But that's a choice, right? Like, sure, you could afford it, but you also have to pay for your mortgage. So what's your choice? You know what I mean? Don't say, oh, the universe doesn't give me enough money. No, no, no. You're choosing. This is a choice. So when you choose, you have to be accountable for your choices, and you have to figure out why you're given these choices. Everything is a life lesson. Everything.
In every life situation, you have a choice. And I just keep thinking about the luxury, the pleasure that I have, I guess, if you will, of like using visual as a distraction, right? It's like when you're forced to, you can't look, right? Quote,
Right.
look out into the world for distraction. You can go on social media, but you can't see, you have to listen.
Right.
You're forced to go in because like that's the only show in town, right? Like,
Right. Exactly. And maybe that's what I needed, for the universe to say, listen, you're intuitive, you're this, you're this. Stop paying attention to the materialistic, because I had a great car. I had the great pocketbooks and the red bottom shoes and the, you know what I mean? And I still do. I still do. I didn't get rid of them all, and I still love all that stuff. But is it the most important thing to me? Hell no. And is making, six figures? Sure, I'd love it. I would never say no to it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
But only if it was the right fit. And I think that's the lesson I learned too. When it's not the right fit, man, it could be, because I got a huge raise going to that last job, and it just wasn't the right fit. It wasn't worth the raise. It wasn't worth the raise. But it's interesting because the universe gave it to me, because when I made 50% of what I make on disability, it brought my 50% up a lot. Do you know what I mean? Because I had a huge raise. It just, everything ended up working for me. And listen, there's times that I'm in bed for 3 or 4 days, like, oh, I can't do this. My energy's low. And you just have to give yourself that time. I thought during a lot of it, I thought that I was going through a depression. And it wasn't a depression, it was a shift. And being the blind one who can't really see, who used that as an excuse, um, that was like safe for me. And making the money, that was like an ego thing for me. It's funny how when you look back now, I have 10 years on this, so I can look back at this. Um, and there were a lot of times that I really was depressed. I really was in bed for a couple of days, and I really I went to counseling. I did the counseling thing, and here, take this medication, and that did help initially. So I don't want to say that that wasn't good. You know what I mean? But I needed to go deeper. And every time I make this huge shift, every time I'm always like, I get in this little slump, and it could be for a couple days, it could be for a couple weeks, and then I'd like shift up. And I feel like it's my energy shifting, and it takes some time for my body to catch up to my spirit. I don't know if that sounds too woo woo, but every time, like right now, I'm in this great shift of moving forward, up, 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 up. But about a year ago, 6 months ago, I was definitely in a little bit of a funk. I was definitely like, I don't feel like getting up. I don't feel like taking a shower. I don't care about consciously positive. I went offline for like 6 months. I just needed to not do anything. And I think that we have to give ourselves the permission to be okay with that. As long as you don't get stuck there. Like I wasn't suicidal. I was just exhausted, exhausted. So it catches up to me sometimes. I think and my daughter knows now, my boyfriend knows now. Nope, not today. And when I say not today, I really mean it. Not today. Maybe tomorrow, but not today. So it took me time too to realize that that wasn't me being lazy. That was me leveling up.
Mm.
Yeah. Stephanie helped me with that. Stephanie and the high vibe tribe, the girls helped me with that. Because I was worried, like, why don't I have any energy? What's wrong with me? Why don't I want to do consciously positive anymore? Why don't I want to do this? Why don't I? And I was getting worried, like, oh my God, am I depressed? Am I suicidal? And the media or the stuff that you hear, like, I was questioning myself, and I'm like, no, I think I'm okay. Like, I had to give myself permission to be, no, I'm just friggin' exhausted. And I've been going, 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 going for 50 years. This was the time for me to pause. And it took me, I'd be good and then I'd go back down again and be good and go back down again. And now I'm like on this really great trajectory. So I'm psyched. I'm excited.
Somebody who's in the place that you just described, could you give us, because I know there are going to be people that listen to this that are in that place, that depressed, that place of like knowing there's a massive shift taking place, or maybe not knowing, but just feeling like crap. And once in a while you feel uplifted, and then the next day you feel like you just want to just fold it all up. What
Right.
what message would you share with them, Kris?
Take a deep breath, go in, meditate. If people don't know how to meditate, it doesn't have to be this 1 hour om thing. It doesn't have to be that. I mean, that's what you strive to do, right? But it could be a 5 minute. You can go on YouTube and just listen to 5 minute guided morning meditation. There'll be thousands of them. And if you don't have time in the morning, do it when you're in the shower, do it when you're on your way to work. Like, just go within. But also let yourself rest. And I get nervous saying that without the caveat of don't stay there. I work with a lot of people who have anxiety, a lot of people who need to, like, a calm reset, I call it. And actually, I'm trademarking that consciously positive calm reset method. It's a method that I have, and it's 8 stages. But I do master classes. Last month, I did a master class on anxiety. This month, I'm doing a master class on resetting your calm. It's so overwhelming how many people need it. And that's what makes me sad. You know what I mean? Because they didn't, I wish they had somebody like I had Stephanie, or they had, and that's why, like, I want to be this coach It's going to get better. It's going to get better. When you're in depression, there's a lot of negative stuff, anxiety, depression, that you're holding on to. And it's how you take things. So you take on other people's energy. If someone says you're stupid, you take that on. If someone says you're lazy, you take that on. I teach people how not to take that on. I was just with my client today, and we were talking about something, and I said, every time somebody talks negative to you, think about doing a shot of tequila. So she goes, oh my God, I'd be drunk by the end of the day. I said, well, picture that drunk as all the negative in your body. Don't take the shot. Somebody says you're an asshole. Thank you. Thank you very much. And just walk away. Don't take it on. And if somebody says you've been sleeping all day, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? I used to have to be like, oh, I have a cold. Oh, I have a headache. No, I'm just exhausted. And sometimes you're exhausted from being exhausted. So it's important to have that buddy or that someone to talk to. And wait, where am I? Is this a depression? Is this a level up? Is this the universe just telling me to slow down? What is this? It doesn't always have to be like a suicide, anxiety ridden depression. Does that make sense?
Totally. And
Okay.
I mean, I felt tired for a long time, and
Yeah.
it just, yeah, it is, yeah, I didn't really know. I thought it was depression, and still some days like it's up and down. I mean, it's
Yeah.
life, right? Like we're
Because you were struggling to live a life that you knew wasn't aligned, even though you didn't know it wasn't aligned. You were struggling. So you were climbing up this mountain and you were exhausted. You were exhausted. That's how I felt. I was exhausted. I don't know why. I can't tell you why I didn't run a marathon. Do you know what I mean? Your spirituality is catching up to your humanness. And that takes some time. And it takes a lot of energy.
Kris, thank you so much for your time. And anyone who wants to inquire about Kris's work, consciouslypositive.com. It'll also be in the show notes. You can see it with the little butterfly behind you. It's interesting because the first LLC that I filed was Threefold Wellness, and my logo was Mind, Body, Spirit. And yeah,
I love that. I love
yeah.
that. Yeah, I'm always doing little master classes. They're for free. I know you're not in the area, but if anybody's in the Connecticut area, I'm doing a master class on my reset method this Saturday in Plainville. And that's all over my Consciously Positive page on mostly Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So reach out, man. I've been there. And I see the other light.